In 1956, a 12-year-old German boy went on what he believed was an ordinary winter holiday, a ski vacation in Switzerland. 2 weeks in the snow, fresh air, quiet mountains, family time. His mother told him they would be staying with a family friend, a distant relative known simply as Uncle Fritz. The boy accepted the explanation without question. Children often do. Uncle Fritz was polite, restrained, and distant. He spoke carefully. He dressed neatly. He skied well but never laughed. He never raised his voice. He never showed warmth. He asked the boy questions about school, about friends, about life back in Germany, but he offered almost nothing in return. No stories, no affection, no sense of connection. They skied together. They ate meals together. They walked through the snow side by side. Yet something felt wrong. The boy could not name it at the time. Only later would he understand that what he felt was not coldness, but absence. An emotional void where a father should have been. For years later, at 16, his mother finally told him the truth. Uncle Fritz was not a family friend. He was Josef Mengele, his father, the angel of death of Auschwitz, the most wanted Nazi war criminal still alive. And his family had known exactly where he was the entire time. This meeting was not a desperate reunion arranged in panic or guilt. It was deliberate, calculated, orchestrated by a wealthy, disciplined family that had spent a decade perfecting the art of silence. The boy's name was Rolf Mengele. He was just old enough to remember every detail of that Swiss trip, yet too young to understand the weight of what was happening around him. His mother had chosen a familiar lie. Uncle Fritz, a businessman, a relative living abroad. The kind of explanation adults give children when the truth is unbearable. For 2 weeks, Rolf lived alongside his father without knowing it. The man who had stood on the ramp at Auschwitz deciding who would live and who would die. The man who experimented on twins. The man whose name survivors could barely speak without shaking. And yet, to the outside world, the Mengele family name carried a very different meaning. To understand how Josef Mengele survived for decades, you must first understand his family. They were not powerless collaborators hiding in shame. They were industrialists. The Mengele family owned Carl Mengele and Sons, one of the most successful agricultural machinery companies in Bavaria. Threshers, balers, combine harvesters. If you were a German farmer in the 1950s or 60s, there was a good chance you owned equipment stamped with the Mengele name. The company employed hundreds in the town of Günzburg. Paychecks carried the name. Factories carried the name. Prosperity carried the name. In Günzburg, the Mengele family were respected employers, pillars of the local economy. This created a grotesque split reality. To the outside world, Mengele meant Auschwitz. To Günzburg, it meant jobs. And jobs by loyalty. When Josef Mengele fled Europe in 1949, he did not vanish into the jungle by luck. He disappeared into a system, a family-built support network that stretched across continents. Every month, money flowed from Germany to South America, quietly, methodically, without error. Between $100 and $175 per month. Enough to live safely in Argentina, Paraguay, and later Brazil. Not lavishly but securely. Josef complained constantly about money, but the payments never stopped. They continued for over 30 years. The man who made this possible was Hans Sedlmayr, a trusted family employee. Sedlmayr acted as courier, banker, and messenger. He carried letters. He delivered cash. He maintained contact. There were no direct wire transfers. No obvious paper trails. The family understood exactly what they were doing. They knew it was illegal. They also knew that being caught required mistakes. So they made none. Money alone was not enough. The family needed the world to stop looking. So they created a story. In 1954, Josef Mengele's wife, Irene, divorced him. On paper, it looked like rejection. A woman cutting ties with a monster. In reality, it was strategy. The divorce allowed Irene to remarry without suspicion. It allowed the family to present Josef as abandoned, isolated, forgotten. But contact never stopped. Then came something stranger. Joseph's brother, Carl Jr., died young, leaving behind a widow named Martha. In 1958, Martha traveled to South America to marry Joseph. A woman crossed an ocean to marry her dead husband's brother, a wanted war criminal living under a false name. It sounds medieval, dynastic, and yet it served its purpose. Joseph was no longer alone. Family loyalty followed him even into exile. Back in Germany, Rolf Mengele grew up carrying a secret no child should bear. At 16, he learned the truth. His father was alive. His father was a mass murderer, and everyone around him had known. Rolf responded by pulling away. He studied law, perhaps searching for justice where none had existed. He later changed his surname, taking his wife's name. He wanted to protect his children from the inheritance he never asked for. But questions haunted him, not about the crimes. He knew those. He had read the testimonies. What haunted him was something else. Who was this man, really? Did he feel anything? In 1977, Rolf made a decision. He traveled to Brazil to confront his father face to face. Josef Mengele was living under the name Wolfgang Gerhard, the identity of a deceased Nazi sympathizer. He was 67, bitter, isolated, paranoid, but what shocked Rolf was not his appearance. It was his emptiness. Joseph claimed he had never harmed anyone, that he had only followed orders, that he felt no guilt, no remorse. To him, Auschwitz was an opportunity, a scientific project, career move. Rolf challenged him, pushed back, demanded acknowledgement, but Joseph felt nothing, and Rolf understood. The survivors had been right. His father was not misunderstood. He was hollow. Rolf returned to Germany. He kept the secret. The family code held. 2 years later, on February 7, 1979, Josef Mengele went swimming off a Brazilian beach. He suffered a stroke. He drowned. He was buried under a false name. No announcement. No authorities notified. And the world kept searching. For 6 years, intelligence agencies chased a dead man. The family watched and stayed silent. They had protected him in life. Now they protected him in death. In 1985, under pressure, the family finally spoke. They provided documents, dental records. The grave was exhumed, the identity confirmed, the case closed, and then nothing. No prosecutions, no punishment. West German law included a provision known as family privilege. Helping a close relative evade justice was not punishable. Blood outweighed law. Despite funding a fugitive for 3 decades, the family faced 0 consequences. Even more bitter, the Bavarian government later bailed out the Mengele company with taxpayer money. The network that hid the angel of death was subsidized by the state. The company eventually collapsed. The name vanished from machinery, absorbed, rebranded, forgotten. Rolf Mengele lived quietly under another name. He gave one interview, then disappeared from public life. Josef Mengele never stood trial, never heard survivors testify, never faced a verdict. He died free, and the family that protected him paid no legal price. Justice was not denied by escape. It was denied by family. Thanks for watching. If this story unsettled you, explore our other deep dives into the families that lived in the shadows of history. Subscribe and stay with us.